we did have another microphone here, external, but since then it's broken. Today, for today, it's gonna have to be a lot. I'm gonna get as close as I can to you and set up for a wireless microphone. So we're recording and we're live. It's just I only see one participant, so I'm not sure what. Gyan Timirundasa Gyanandana Salakaya Vitamina Tasmai Adinulambika Anagada Sangeetanai Katitaro Ramaya Vishvambaro Dvijoro Yugathan Sangeetanai Katitaro Vande Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Vandeham Shri Ramakrishna Abhaya Charana Saro Ukado Sindaro He Krishna Sindaro Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Radhe Sade Ishwaran Sudede Pranamami So, good morning, late morning. We met earlier this morning, and earlier we began a reading from a book in progress entitled Satyapanai. We were reading from the second part of the book, which describes something about how the different ages of Krishna, beginning with the final portion, Sage, ending portion of his Kumar or childhood, when he becomes a calf herder, into his Poganda, early Poganda, middle Poganda, late Poganda, and on the other end of the spectrum, Madhurya Rasa, Krishna's Kishore, his adolescent, that will serve primarily for that ages as an equivalent for Madhurya Rasa. So it's peculiar, comparatively, Satya Rasa stands all three. As part of the childhood and all the way through boyhood and through the entirety of before adolescence, through Krishna and breath. So the second part of this book explores the concept through Udipana, through Bhav, and then proceeds to go into some depth as to how Krishna appears, how he acts, how he dresses, and so forth with these different ages. So we're reading a little bit from that. And however, for our broadcast classes like this one, in the mid-morning. I'm going to discuss the first part of the book, which aside from its preface and introduction, is 5 chapters, or chapters, that take us through, that highlight different verses that take us through the Patat Lila, manifest Lila of the Bhagavad, the Bhagavatam, from the stage up into the beginning of the shore. Today, then, to begin those classes, I'll speak a little from the introduction of the book. And thoughts in this regard, as I've written about them, to begin with, the books, so to say, about stuff that are also eternal love of God, a rare commodity. And this is so even within the Gaudiya Sampradaya, which is curious. I'll get to that. But the rarity of books about eternal love of God is extreme, I would say. Where will we find them? I think that there is a notion of eternal love of God outside the Gaudiya Sampradaya and outside of Vaishnavism in general, Hinduism in general. Traces of eternal love can be found not as fully developed and respected information in the Bible. There's a full face, right, of eternal love of God. But in a broader sense, from the point of view, not of Bhava, but the point of view of Tattva. I'll give you an example. There's a saying, people just on the sites the saying in this from the others. It's I don't know where it's from, but Sadevo Devam Acharya. If one wants to worship God, one has to be one with God. Being one with God cannot worship God. It's kind of curious because the Jews would say God and worship God. So obviously, the statement itself is runs in contrast to the Advaitin idea of oneness with God, which is the radical, absolute oneness. So here, in this statement, cited by Madhuvan Festival, he's speaking about fraternal love, but he's speaking about it in a lower sense in terms of, by citing this in terms of tattva, to take it from Bhava, a way of saying, but the equality is not one of absolute, because if it was absolute, there'd be no service, no love, no exchange. Therefore, it's a oneness in terms of Bhava, Rasa. But but the statement itself, I think, pertains in a broad sense to a broader idea of eternal love of God, brotherly love that is divine in nature. We hear, for example, from the Bible or from Christianity, must be in the Bible, that it all boils down to the teaching of Christ, the Prince of Peace. Two things: his teaching. What is that? Love your neighbor like yourself. Love God with all your heart and soul. Love your neighbor like yourself. And God with all your heart and soul. So the first part of this is a broader idea. Bhaktivinoda Thakur drew upon it when he was writing about the excellence in terms of the theological contribution that Gaudiya Vaishnavism makes to the world. Um, in an effort, in an effort to really put Gaudiya Vaishnavism on the stage with the world religions, Christianity, Islam, the, the Jewish tradition. There's a few of them, not a whole lot, a handful of the world's major religions. We wanted to put Chaitanya Vaishnavism on that stage. And of course, in doing so, we try to find commonality, common ground between what Gaudiya Vaishnavism is teaching and what other schools are teaching. And going to Christianity, which I believe is found amongst the world religions, the tradition is closest Vaishnavism with its emphasis on love of God. And its saints and so on and so forth, and its familiarity with it, through the British occupation of India and features that were prominent at the time, and the British had made the capital of Calcutta and schooled, by the British systems of education that they were developing. Say he looked deeply at Christianity in his search, as he portrays himself in his own, what's sometimes called an autobiographical letter, a letter that he wrote to one of his sons, quite a long letter, kind of outlines his life until he himself as a searcher. And he looked deeply into Christianity. This is a time when, of course, the Hindus were interfacing with the modern world, with the Europeans, and their thoughts, their ideas, and trying to reason about their own theological perspectives, relationships, and so on and so forth. So anyway, we find in the right, statements like, and in Christianity we find Bhakti Rasa, brotherly love. Well, it's you can see he's going to find some common ground. So what is the brotherly love, and what is this broader idea of fraternity with God? Apart from a more specific idea of fraternal love of God that we find in Gaudiya Vaishnavism. Well, again, this brotherly love here, the example is there in the teachings of Jesus, where he says, "You should love your neighbor as yourself." In other words, there should be what? A sense of oneness or equality between myself and others. This is central to the tattva of Satyarasa, equality. We'll go into that as we explore the actual bhava of Satyarasa, the feel of equality in relation to Bhagwan. But here in brotherly love advocated by Christianity, we find a similar idea in terms of tattva, that there should be a oneness. We're all sisters and brothers, or what they say, different mothers. Sisters and brothers of different mothers in the world. It's true in the Leela as well, in terms of Sakyarasa and the Leela. We're all brothers and sisters, young children, boys and girls, all friends with one another. Krishna's friends are, his sisters are all with Krishna, and Krishna loves all of them. Very intimate, young setting, the Braj Leela. centered on these brothers and sisters. Now, in the broader sense of the world brotherly love, we want to make it divine, but we find this in some of the traditions, like I'm citing from Christianity. Right? Um, now, romance is a celebrated thing. I don't know if they have a name for it, but um, friends. I not long ago I did research on, on how on Western thought with regard to phenomena that you see readily in India, young men walking hand in hand. Typically, I believe in the United States, if you see young men walking hand in hand, you think their orientation sexually is gay. A Western person going to India, which is much more common, widespread, young boys walking hand in hand. There was a lot of gay people over here in India. So anyway, I did some research about that, and there was a fellow that did a whole photographic study on this topic, and then he learned, how they think and so forth, and he interviewed them and so forth, and his kind of query, which to them was very odd. Well, why are you holding hands? We're friends. We're friends love one another. It was like, well, what are you talking about? You're weird to think that we shouldn't be holding hands. We're friends. We love one another. And there was no, if you will, sexuality to it. Right? Love of friends. It's kind of an example how the extent to which friendship is a little lacking maybe in the Western culture. And it's a new idea, this new word bromance. It's not new, it's been on for a while, but it's relatively new. But there's guys that really like one another and they're friends. And it's powerful, compelling, and so forth. So, at any rate, to give it the brotherly love in and of itself, it has a kind of it elevates us. Like I said, brothers and sisters, sisters and brothers of different mothers. So it elevates us beyond our nationality, beyond our genders, beyond our even religious traditions and so forth. We're all brothers, like that. I think they're like it's a kind of a quasi Dr. Us, or it contains a broad sense of brotherly love. Something that one sense or other is common to all tradition. Sense of equality amongst one another, that we're all children of God. We're all sons of God, daughters of God. We're all brothers and sisters. So transcend ultimately the designations that we have that appear to make us different and so on and so forth. So there is a sense of love and brotherly love of God, or divine brotherly love, other sense. It's not that common. It's not given a measure of interest, and it's not portrayed by any stretch of the imagination to the extent in art, in literature, in poetry, in drama, in music, in the world, advertising as romantic love uh, is, but it has a place. It has an important place. But the point I make here also as well is that given that the rarity of it, the fact that it has its place, I mean, we look also. Let's look for a moment to the Gita, to a broad sense within Hinduism. Let us say, what does it say in the sixth chapter of the Gita in this regard? Krishna says the best yogi, six chapters about yoga, right? The best yogi, he or she who feels the pain of others as if it is his own, his or her own. So this oneness, neighbor as yourself, the, the basis, the basis of real spiritual life. And when we come to this tattva, this sense of paternal uh, more in terms of tattva, by loving our neighbors, our others as us, seeing their pains as ours. It's not a small thing. To love your neighbor like yourself, you have to be fairly well acquainted with yourself. You're pretty content in yourself. You're pretty deeply experienced in what the self really is. Because the extent not, well, the differences are going to take precedence and get in the way. So it's understandable that if you actually come to the platform of loving your neighbor as yourself, what follows is that you're loving God. That's the next step. Think about with all your heart and soul. And start to transcend the superficial differences in human society and understand the Atma, which is basically what we're talking about. Then that Atma, I love it said, what is it in the world that most resembles God? Sun? It rises on its own. No one can tell it what to do. It does its own. It is time. It makes the day, and with the day, peaceful minds, things to do, produces the essential for agriculture. And it produces the rain, all sun and rain. With that you can grow, so forth. So the sun is thought to be the thing in the world, something in the world that most resembles God. We sing, we chant, that's the endure. The worlds of God, physical, mental realms, dimensions. In the realm of intellect, this is the Brahma world. In the realm of mind, the celestials, and so forth. Sabitur and Sabitur lights it all up. So sometimes it's just thought to be of the sun. But no, we understand through the families, great length and Paramatma Sambhava, Tattva Sambhava to explain. I had 3 months. It's only about Bhagavan, only about Vishnu, only about Krishna, only about Krishna as seen through the Radha. This is the Gayatri. The Bhakti said himself, he did Gayatri when he gave Brahma Gayatri when he gave Diksha. Simply put the point, this is not a Gaudiya. You can't get more Gaudiya than Brahma Gayatri. Bhagavatam said to do and do the Puran Gayatri Bhakti. Also a commentary on the Gayatri. If the Bhagavatam is there, the meaning of Brahma Gayatri. Brahma Gayatri must be the rodeo. Right? So, from the rodeo perspective, Sabi to son, what is it? It is the self. Self is not in the world. Verse 56, 7, after the Gita, Aparayam Satsangam Satsangam, Satsakiti Metaram, Jiva Bhuta Mahava, Vedam. As he describes the material elements, and there's another Prakriti, Para Prakriti, or the Atmas, sustaining the world, making it work, giving it life, illuminating it, bringing it to life. So, that which is most like God in the world is us, in the true sense of the word. Rise are these bodies or designations of Finnish, Polish, American, Mexican, um, and that goes for religions too. Catholic, Hindu, Russian. Love is experienced from it. I wanted to say I love you, but the words. So we're talking about a very high topic, rasa in general, and satyarasa. As you see, it's very high on the ladder. High on the ladder of Upada Swami's hierarchy, if you will. Rasa, rapport, aesthetic rapport with, with the Godhead in terms of intimacy. How close you can get. It's second. And it's really it's part of the first rung of the ladder, without which that ladder can't function. That rung will fall. That step will fall. Very high thing. But in order to understand it, to actually enter into it and appreciate it for what it is, which would result in the appreciation of all the concepts of Bhakti Rasa, all of the ideals of the different rasas, whether that be Shanta, Dasa, Acharya, Sattva, Madhurya. It's not a, in other words, a competitive affair. You may make distinctions and cite the virtues of one wants to another for the sake of for, inspiring practitioners in their particular practice. But these are all relative to this world. As you rise above material designations, and if you can go so high as you can, you go to rationalism in time. That's our prospect. To enter into Bhakti Rasa, everything. Everyone's fully satisfied in their particular ideal and relationship. Wouldn't have it any other way. So to get there, to give some appreciation how high that we have to transcend. We have to develop upon an idea, a broader idea that itself is stunning, and that the world is as as, as a whole is far from religions fighting with one another, Middle East, and the world. Where's the brotherly love? It's so basic, but so high. As Krishna said, this is the highest of the yogi who loves the others, sees others suffering as if it is their own. And this is nowhere in comparison to what Russell is about in terms of transcending the material resignations and knowing the self, exploring the possibilities of what it means to be a unit of consciousness. The thing in this world is not a thing, but that in this world that most resembles God. It is one with Him. Sadevo Devam Acha. You know, Prabhupada say, if you want to live in the sun, if you want to enter the fire, you know, unless you're in a fire body, unless you're living in the fire element itself, you know, you're going to get burned, right? So we gather together here. The point I'm making is to talk about something that's very elevated, and it's easy. It's not easy to talk about, but it's easy to talk about in comparison to realizing and experiencing it. So we should take talks about it seriously and try to find from them what something from that we can employ in our everyday practice. We can employ a conceptual orientation, and at least it should be they say that this that you by the power of kirtan, Hari Kirtan, Nansen Kirtan, focusing on this, which the first stage of which is cleansing the heart. Why am I cleansing the heart? For what? Is that all I'm doing? Where do I want to go? I want to get things out of my heart that are dirty, that are getting in the way of even appreciating other beings for what they are, having a sense of oneness with them, a kindred sense with nature, like a human, and so forth, as we're talking about. Get those things out of the heart so that we can beat fully with the love for the source of all of us who are basically equal. And by cleansing the heart, knowing our equality in a kind of qualitative, Prabhupada would say, qualitative sense with Bhagavan. He is Brahman, we are the part and parcel, right? So the spark and the fire, you can say they're qualitatively one and quantitatively different. In another sense, in a deeper sense, for us inspecting, they're qualitatively different too. But I think it's a good way of saying this with the emphasis. Qualitatively one, quantitatively different. Even that's hard to measure. So it's important to emphasize this because we see that with the wide dissemination of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's teaching, precepts that we have been involved in, our community has been involved in. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who I referenced earlier, was the chief and principal proponent and person who interacted with the modern world and envisioned as I said earlier, putting Gaudiya Vaishnavism on the stage of the world's religion. He started it, set it in motion in modern time. Um, uh, so as this goes forward and his followers uh, attempt uh, to continue that, because it's a very high topic, and because teaching about it, in a sense, is the way, being a form of kirtan, many people get involved, but their understanding of it is still something that they're developing. They're using the preaching as a way to purify themselves. But it's easy to get lost in thinking, I'm purifying everybody else is what I'm doing. I'm saving the world. Corresponding with Madhuvan Maharaj, cycle of Srila Maharaj, I've known since he was a kid. So, nephew of Barbara Streisand. Who else became started? Another story. Barbara Streisand, famous singer. I told him, I said, in the Gita it says, amongst female singers in Bhagavad. He said, I'm going to tell her that one. Next time I see her, I'm going to tell her you said, give her your God at the Gita. It was pretty funny. And that's the extension that chapter of the Gita is about. Whatever is powerful and moving and earth shaking in the world, it's the beauty of Krishna. Yeah. And you put all of it together, yad yad vibhuti mat sattvam shumadudhameva. Sattareva bhagachatam namakoto. It's just a spark of his fun, the wheels. Moving love him, oh my God. This is a very high idea. So, but my point is that in the context of preaching for one's own purification, well, we do find sometimes people get a little lost in that and think they're purifying the world. In my conversation with Madhuvan this morning, he was telling me about different groups, and even Vrindavan. And I said, yeah, they're all their missions are saving the world. And they're all against one another. And they're all waving the flag and flipping them off of it. They're all saving the world, and they got to keep away from others so they can save the world. So so that's why I just like to very generous, good with lazy around it. And I said, well, they feel like that to me. With the significant contribution to the community, to the Sampradaya. The Godbrother of mine was looking at the book with a view to endorse it, or say a different book, with friends with him, soon to be published. And after going through it in great detail, he said, who's this for? So, because part of it is a lot of touch, but it's also very hard when it comes into the description of Aprakat Leela, Astakal Leela from the Sakaraj point of view, Narmasaka point of view. This is very deep or high. And so it's further something. That's what it says to me. You could have said the same thing about even about the rest of the Sindhu. To put it out in nectar of devotion. I mean, the devotees didn't know what they were reading, but they were reading it upside down, or it's like nobody understood the book. That was typically the way devotees responded. I made an effort to figure it out. Many of them gave up, but there was somebody studying it. So yeah, many devotee books are just not for everybody who because I'm a Gaudiya politician. It takes time to simulate all that's being said. What was the tidal wave of dispensation, particularly in how placed in the hand, in the heart of each of us? He said, as Brahma, as I, in the form of Krishna, Swayam Bhagavan, place all the Vedic truths in the heart of Brahma and go to disseminate them with the Brahma unity. Put them up and said, I'm placing everything in all the truths of Vedic unity. He wrote some pretty interesting and deep books, right? That by the power and the grace of our Bhakti are getting found away into academia. Very interesting place, topic for research, for indologists, transcriptists, and religious scholars and so forth. This is part of what Bhakti made wanted to do, to put Gaudiya Vaishnavism on the stage of the world religion. If you really look carefully, you'll see there's a book, interestingly enough, called The American Veda. Forget who the author is. He wrote it some years back, not that long ago, within this century. And it's all about the influence of Hinduism and Vedanta in the West, in the United States. And he goes through all the different groups and the different groups that came and so on and so forth, and how in so many subtle ways Hinduism has seeped in, found it's coming out of the mouths of people who don't even know that they're, where it comes from, the word dharma. Well, I'm half Hindu, and I didn't realize. I believe in reincarnation, and I'm a Christian. What happened to me? Right? So, anyway, the American Veda, and in there, he cites Prophet's work, and he says nobody of all groups in the 60s and the 70s, and it was such a huge influx, ingress of Hindu teachings, yoga teaching, and so forth, did more to promote vegetarianism and reincarnation. The main themes. You can appreciate this point. Prabhupada was teaching about Sakyarasa, about Madhurya Rasa, about Vatsalya Rasa. And what we picked up was reincarnation, vegetarian. I mean, we picked up more than that, but these were not only emphases because we thought this is what people could digest, but these were the things we were digesting. We were digesting. We were resonating with these themes, which are not exclusive to Gaudiya Vaishnavism by any stretch of the imagination. But he said, and this is the point I was making, also what they've done that no other group that was born in this period in the West, constituted of Western followers and so forth, was that the number of the followers, a good number of them, became scholars. And they're writing about the Gaudiya Vaishnavism. There was the whole thing at Oxford that been developed, and there's quite a few. The grand disciples of Prabhupada became scholars, and so this is again exactly what Bhaktivinoda Thakur wanted to do: take Gaudiya Vaishnavism and put it on the stage of the world's religions. My book have my books have been my latest book. I'm getting some nice endorsements from scholars who aren't devotees, but who have been influenced by Gaudiya Vaishnava, found it interesting, made their thesis about it, their doctorate about it, research about it. Very rich theological tradition. I mean, compared with Advaita Vedanta, I mean, I listened to this one fellow speak about Advaita Vedanta, and he was Indian fellow giving a compelling lecture about Advaita Vedanta, the followers. And he made the point, he said, you know, he said, every night, every day, you want to go to sleep, don't you? You want to go to and just rest, don't you? Yes, we all want sleep, rest, shanti, shanti, shanti. It's going to, be compelling, right? Deep sleep. This is like Brahman. We all want Brahman. And I'm thinking, no, what a terrible example compared to saying we all want love, don't we? Well, yeah, that sounds a little better. And if I go to sleep, I dream about love. If I can't have it, I dream about having it. I can't find it. I mean, it was humorous to me because comparatively, what we would have to say, what we have to bring forward as an argument that says we're all looking for Gaudiya Vedanta, for theistic Vedanta. Oh, it's just so much more rich, so much more nuanced, right? Compelling, and so much more that tuned into or catering to the emotional reality that human life is constituted of. We're emotional beings, right? Now we want to go beyond the limits of our material emotions that make differences, designations, and so forth, as I was saying earlier. But to what? Emotional, rising out of the Atma in Brahman, in rasa with Brahman. Asura Vasa, Rasa, base rasa. Knowing yourself in a beginning sense, to be one with him, not the world, not one with the elements of the world, but one with him as a unit of consciousness. That is most like the most. I mean, this is a staggering idea. Vivekananda said something like this at this famous conference. At a time, in the eyes of many Christians, a problem for Christianity. And then he spoke about evolution has been part of Hinduism forever, And so they thought, oh, it works over here. And there were converts and so forth. But he made this point. He didn't make it in the way we would make it, but he made it. That we're all looking for God, but you yourself are God. You want to go on from there. We are qualitatively one with God. Right? Love your neighbor, love yourself. So while we want to preach about the Gaudiya Vaishnava, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was strong on this point. Started with verse. By kirtan, by preaching, by sankirtan, by explaining the teachings. Try to take these high teachings and put them into, make a reasonable presentation of them and share it with others. That will help you to think about it more deeply yourself, because now it's coming out of your own mouth, not just into your ears from something you're hearing, but you're talking it. You heard it come out, you said it. Do you believe it? How can you integrate it? Are you integrating it into your life, changing your life, and so forth? Is your heart becoming cleansed? So there are things to look for before we look for Bhakti Rasa itself to be manifested, right? And when that doesn't happen, then the preaching or the Sankirtan, which is a student of mine, wrote to me recently about another student who's no longer a student of mine, and said, I never got that attracted to that person. That devotee was a good speaker and knew the philosophy very well. But he said that I learned through you, I learned that such thing is just really an ornament. It doesn't in itself, um, in of itself, it's not evidence of having understood, realized, having wisdom. He, he said, what reading your Shikshastakam commentary, which I've done, several times when I'm starting, I'm really learning what it means to be a devotee, what Sankirtan means, what it yeah, change your life and so forth. What is humility, tenacity, sorority, tolerance. We can't even tolerate our guru saying you're proud. We need to study practice. I appreciate it. This kind of understanding is important. Otherwise, we hear about Bhakti Rasa and we start to my rasa instead of your rasa, and it becomes a competitive thing, and this is very unbecoming, right? And in other ways, Bhakti Rasa is misunderstood in India, grossly misunderstood within Gaudiya, Vaishnavism. Bhakti Vinodya is a reformer, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur following his lead, following to the letter, Bhakti Torvin's, which is in a letter. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur critique his own tradition and so forth. It's important to make some of these points as we enter into this topic. We're going to be taken lightly. So, books about Sakyarasa, about eternal, divine, eternal love is there. And now, we go to the next. That's the first sentence of the first half of the sentence of the introduction. We just give a little lecture on. The second one is and rare, even in Gaudiya Vaishnava. So, that seems perhaps odd. Given what? Given that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, his other self, Nityananda Prabhu, is the fullest expression and personification of that very wrote that because he wrote writing another book about it. And in the past decade or so, this is the third one we put out. All my friends are there. A couple of friends about to come out, and this book started coming. The reasons for the reasons as to why there aren't many books about it. And most of them are not good, for bad reasons. Because of misunderstanding Bhakti Rasa and turning in some instances, the such a high ideal as Bhakti Rasa in general, Kriya Rasa, the Bharatiya Rasa, the Gaudiya Vaishnava, in the central sentiment, personified in Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Mahabhav Rasaraj, Guru, two together in one form, turning it into a business, selling it, access to it. These are things again that are examples of the tradition that like the no doctor, like I said, I'm self-gospel following him, uh, taught to reform, to address, and so forth. So I address it in a word or two here in the introduction. As we go on to make a case for the extraordinary position of for us, while so uh, so accurately stating its position in its own right, its glory, and in relation to Madhuvan Festival, its glory. So we'll get into that as we continue further. Figure out a time here in the next stop. Let's stop here for a moment. What is the time?
11:57.
Questions? Yes.
If it didn't quite make it to the on its own state, like it's so um secret and even challenging. I'm not a good representative because I'm always when surrendering or if it could never be there, it's on the sympathy because it's kind of
I think that the answer to that is no, in one sense. And I think that it is on the stage of the earth religions. But just as what you say about Gaudiya Vaishnavism, it is very esoteric, it's very high, as we're saying, it requires so much of us, everything, all of us, to realize it's the ideal, as enticing as it is difficult as it is to, to, to attain given our present situation. So your reasoning, I understand, maybe because it's like that, it's really never going to make the stage of the world religions, which are aiming at something lower. But actually, this is my answer, the other world religions are not aiming at something lower. I mean, lower, we would say, than Sakarasa, lower than Madhurya Rasa, lower than Vatsalya Rasa, entrance into the Braja Lila. That particular department or compartment of the Paravyom, of the world beyond time and space. But relative to what I was saying earlier, even to enter into Brahma Sayuja, like the Gyanis want to do, how's that going to get on the main stage of religion? That requires everything as well. Our reasoning is, if you're going to give everything, you might as well give it to Krishna and attain more than just entering into Brahman. It's a small thing in comparison, ending the suffering. What it takes just to end the suffering, you say, was easy. Buddha just sat down. That's all it did. You want to end suffering, just sit down. But don't get up. That's the hard thing. Don't get up. Let's say Christianity. What Jesus teaching? His teaching, I gave some of it. Love your neighbor like yourself. Well, that's pretty darn hard to do. People aren't doing that very well in Christianity. I've seen. And love God with all your heart and soul. That's all. So that's lacking too. And but what Jesus' teaching is also is to his followers. Is this only for 12 apostles? Drop anything, come with me. They dropped everything. Went with him, didn't they? They put on robes or whatever. I don't know. I guess everybody wore robes at that time, but they went against the whole friggin' Roman Empire and the whole Jewish tradition. Jesus was a rebel. And he had a band of a few followers. At the core of the teaching, when I've told the story before, many years ago when I was in ISKCON, at one point I was teaching in the temple in Chicago, and a lady who had moved on, and her husband, who was part of I think it was the Presbyterian Church. She was previously a Catholic nun, I think, a friend of mine to this day. She used to come over to the temple because she would see us walking and she was interested. Just had a religious interest. She started listening to my lectures. She just loved them. We talked, and she'd go home and talk to her husband. See, someone said this, someone said that. And, we can get a little strong about renunciation, giving everything. And he started to factor that into his lectures on Sunday to the class, to the congregation. And they were mostly older ladies, men, and they did not like it. So they complained to the bishop, and he got transferred to the Bahamas. Talk to the natives down there in the Bahamas about this stuff, not to us, civilized people. We want a different idea of Christianity, right? So the point I'm making is that all the real religious traditions that are at their core, they're ego-effacing. Even the non-religion, non-theistic religion of Buddhism, it's ego-effacing. Sufism, which I would call a mystical expression of Islam, informed by Vedanta, it's ego-effacing. So it's this ego-effacing in the minimum that is not very attractive. It's never going to be on the world stage. So I think it holds true for the core of all ideas. Mysticism, what's going to be on the world stage is a form of Gaudiya Vaishnavism that's the religious form of it. And then that's that ideal. That's the highest ideal that's there. But that's good because that religious sector will give support to the mystics, who can set an example in due course from the religious orientation to Gaudiya Vaishnavism, have the courage to come out, or to inform our religious practice with this, so we don't misunderstand that this is what it's about. It's going through religious rituals and so forth, and so on. We keep that in mind. There's a place for that. That part of spirituality reaches out and expresses itself in an institution, with dogma, teachings, and dress, and ways in which protocol that you can adopt that will make you, like in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, like dressed like this, heard of T-law. It makes your body like a portal, like the Pakat Lila is in the Dhamma. It's a portal, the Apakat Lila. You obey certain ritual and so forth, then you're in a position and at a prospect of getting an experience. That experience will take you beyond the religious orientation, right? In that room, but it's getting that kind of recognition and so forth, enough to say that it's on stage, it's there, and it's growing in the world, but it's not what we sit on Narayana Purana, but it's the Bhagavatam. If you to say same thing. Manushanam Sahasretu Kaschid Bhagavati. That the Nama is the this scare you away. This is true, this verse. Shouldn't scare you. It's not said by Krishna to scare people. What does the verse say? 1 out of 1,000 people, 1 out of 1,000,000 people, Muktanam Apisiddhanam. 1 out of 1,000,000 people will be interested in this. Bob can take it. 1 out of 1,000,000 siddhas. Means we've got that brotherly love. We've risen above that the material designations. Self-realized. 1 out of 1,000,000. You'll find Narayana Parayana. They've given their life to Narayana. And that we would take it further. And out of 1,000,000 of those, they've given their life to Krishna, like a friend, like a mother, living the earth. A place that they don't even know about it. And we're being told about it. Goodness. So this verse should not scare us away. 1 out of 1,000, out of thousands of millions that are interested, one will realize the truth of the self. And out of 1,000 millions of those, one will know me. Manushanam Sahasretu. Be of high spirit and think, that's what I want. This is so rare, so valuable. It's available for the humans. It's being offered. And it's being offered in a generous way by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because in the Gita, Krishna just says, Sarvadharman Pratyaja may come. He says, become my devotee, pay your obeisance to me, love me, think about me. How do you do all that? Chaitanya Mahaprabhu tells how to do it all. Put it in the whole package. So it's available. We should be high-minded and think, such a rare thing. I should go for that, even if it takes a long time. I can quickly send you to Brahman, put you to sleep. Are you not suffering? And then you're suffering forever. Well, the Kumar was not tempted. When he came before him and said, I'll take you. I will consume you. Resolve all your problems. Take that away from him. He was known for he went to Vaikuntha and so on and so forth. Ended up in as a Priyanama Sakti in Goloka Vrindavan. So it's on a stage. Another question? Yeah.
You say things, oh, it's not in the book. So my question is, does a person like you just wait for revelation, or is it like
So remembering the things in the book, or is that what you mean?
Or finding meaning from them. I'm not trying to be you.
In other words, you read that too, but we're reading the same book, but I didn't get that out of it. Then you're getting that out of it.
Exactly.
Well, that's the advantage of Marsh. You should compare this books to passive agents of divinity, and sadhus to activate them, because they can go after you and question whether you understand and expand your
understanding.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt, Guru Maharaj, but could you repeat the question? The sound's very bad on the recording, so we couldn't hear it on this end.
The question is, sometimes I wonder if I'm reading with you, because, I read that book, I read that verse, I read that section, And what you're making out of it, I didn't get that at all out of that, but I can see that it's there now when you're talking about it. So what's wrong with me? Something like that is the question. And how do I start to, get that out of the book? So I'm making the point. I cited Peter Mark, who used to say that the scripture was a passive agent of divinity, and the fathers are active agents because they can go after us and force us to help us think about what we read or what we heard, and bring out insights that we couldn't, weren't able at that point to draw out. So the how-to is to keep in good association. Therefore, it's besides the reading of my disciple, you listen to my lectures. You get, oftentimes more from listening to the lecture than reading the book. But then you can go back and read the book and go, so but it's like learning a language, right? Once your husband said, you're like fluent in Vaishnavism. Fluent. Like rolls off your tongue, So it's like a language. And what happens is that, okay, you can get a book or a recording. Let's say you get a book and learn Spanish, right? So you're learning it, right? But then, you're not that good at it. But if you go to Chile or Costa Rica or Mexico, and then you hear the people speaking, suddenly start to catch on in a way that I know what that means. I'm not thinking about the words. I just know the meaning. I know what it means. It's not like this word means this and this word means this grammar. Back. We're back. Can you hear us, Gurnishta? I hope you can hear us.
Yes, we can hear you.
The importance of scripture, in one sense, its purpose is what? Is to tell us what we should be looking for in terms of a person who embodies what the teaching says, and then we listen to that person. We don't even have to read any books. Therefore, there's two types of Bhagavad. That's why Prabhupada was once asked by a disciple, Prabhupada, I was thinking of learning Sanskrit. And Prabhupada said, what for? He's thinking, what do you mean, what for, Prabhupada? His answer was, what for? What's the point of that? There may be a point for one disciple here or there, and he said, you learn Sanskrit so you can help me with the translation, but by and large, Prabhupada wasn't advocating that all the disciples learn Sanskrit. Let them learn Krishna consciousness. All they're reading that. Can't be happy. I mean, it was pretty simple and he emphasized certain points that if you actually put them in place, practice them, imbibe them, embrace them, then the things that I'm saying, they'll come in your heart. Things come in life that like come from another planet. Alien. Come from it. That idea. That it just appeared in my dream. So anyway, by association and time, that's why sadhu sangha, sadhu festival. Lavamata sadhu sangha, sadhu festival. A little association goes a long way, and a lot of association goes a real long way. So we try to stay in that association, and we assimilate, and we learn without even knowing it. We learn. We're imbibing it. So therefore, the emphasis. Therefore, the sadhu is more important than the book. Wait a minute, the book is more important because it speaks, and then we don't represent the book, and then misrepresenting the tradition. Yeah, but if God what speaks, but what is the internal reality? of the Mahabharata, if you can't see, he or she can see Krishna everywhere. Can you see that I see Krishna everywhere? But then it also gives the external characteristics. What do they like? How do they act? It's all there in Bhagavad. One verse internal, one verse external. So these things can be learned. Then we can identify if we're serious about making a comprehensive solution to the problem. Then we're in a right position to look for a comprehensive solution, and with little education, we can identify it when it shows, and it will show. How did Richard Marsh find his guru? Guru found him. He found his guru by wanting to know a comprehensive solution to the problems of life, to the world of problems, to the world. He wanted, and he was prepared to fast until death. And he started to give it a food. Suddenly Sukadeva came on the scene. And he didn't look like you might think. He didn't have a long beard, turban. He came on a flying carpet. He was young, naked. People thought he was crazy. Not the right thing. And it was contagious. Richard Marsh thought it be his mother. Came out and by the time it was still in motion, but didn't see. Shri Radha Gopal.
Aye.
Or Dr. Rindaki.
Aye.
So assuming there's no questions from the internet here, we're closed for the day, and if there are, please reserve them for tomorrow. Answer them tomorrow. Nice to be with all.
Guru Maharaj ki